So a few years ago, someone said to me, "Do you fancy a game of golf?" I said, "Yeah, okay, that sounds good." Didn't realise that they were actually inviting me to go on golf tour. There was about 20 of us, and I was the one who had only played about 3 games of golf in my entire life, and they were all badly played. And I got onto the first tee, and I'm thinking, what club do I use? And I saw this big one, and I thought, I'll use it. So I put my ball down. I lined myself up, did my little wiggle, swung the club as fast as I could, all the way through the ball. And the ball went screaming all the way down the middle of the fairway and landed in the middle further than anybody else's ball had gone. And they're all calling me a bandit, and they're winding me up saying, "You're meant to be rubbish at this game." And I just did a really good shot. And sometimes I think life is a little bit like that. We kind of try our hardest. We kind of set it all up so that we stand in the right position, and we just swing the club and it all goes well. I kind of think that's a little bit like my Christian life, my Christian walk with God. It's a really good little formula that I've got. I've set up my Bible reading plan. I've turned the worship music up and pray at least 14 times at set times through the night. Revival breaks out as my shadow just passes by. No, you're right. My formula just doesn't quite cut it. It doesn't really work. Because I set it all up, just like I set the ball up. And I try my hardest to knock it straight down the fairway. And it very, very rarely works. Because more often than not, I'm on the other fairway. Sometimes a different course altogether. When my ball bounced across the road once, it was quite amusing. For the cars. But what actually happens is that, you try your hardest, you line it all up, and you just get it a little bit wrong. And when I'm stood on the other fairway looking back, I often think to myself, how many degrees off am I? Because the further I hit the ball in the wrong direction, the further off it goes. If I just tapped it a little way, it would still be on course. But not me. No, I give it everything that I've got every single time, and it goes way, way off course. But I want you to hold on to that sentence tonight. How many degrees off are you? How many degrees off are you? We're going to go into our reading now, and it's in James. Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow, we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money. Why, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. Now listen, you rich people. Now, I'm just going to stop there. This whole thing is not meant to be condemning. If you've got loads of money, it's all right. You're allowed to have money. But now listen, you rich people, weep and wail because of the misery that is coming on you. Your wealth has rotted, and moths have eaten your clothes. Your gold and silver are corroded. Their corrosion will testify against you and eat your flesh like fire. You have hoarded wealth in the last days. Look, the wages you failed to pay the workers who mowed your fields are crying out against you. The cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord Almighty. You have lived on earth in luxury and self-indulgence. You have fattened yourselves in the day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the innocent one who was not opposing you. This is the word of the Lord. I was like, thanks, Si, when I read that first. I was like, who put that together? It's a bit of a tough passage, and especially when you've got to stand up here and preach on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just break it into a couple of, loads of little chunks, because I really want us to kind of grasp it, and I really have a heart that tonight we're going to be totally challenged by it. I really believe that God's got some really good stuff for us. It might not be what I say, but I reckon God's got some great stuff for us. So in the passage just before this, which was touched on last week, there are some fantastic lines in it. And it kind of leads us up to this passage. And if they were our mission statement, our own life's mission statement, and we stuck to it, I don't think we'd go too far off course. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will exalt you. How many degrees off are you? If we go back to this golf ball and we just wrote down on the golf ball, submit yourselves therefore to God. And we lined it up and we smacked it as hard as we could. Is it going right down the middle of the fairway, or is it just going to drift off? If you wrote on that golf ball, resist the devil and he will flee from you, how many degrees off are you? When was the last time you actually really drew near to God? Now, I'm not talking about just simply coming here and singing songs and listening to sermons and things like that, but really spent some time drawing near to God. They're just a fantastic few lines that leads us into this passage of tonight. So verse 13, today or tomorrow we will go to this city, this or that city, spend a year there, carry on and make money. Have you ever had a plan? Have you ever had a business plan or a financial plan, a strategy to make life better? Maybe you wanted to get onto the property ladder or have a family. Maybe your plan was as ridiculous as mine. Win the lottery and live happily ever after. So I went out and bought myself a lottery ticket. It's a magic lottery ticket, though, because as soon as I bought it, it immediately turned into a piece of rubbish. It was just no point at all. But this financial plan thing, this is what James was talking to. He's talking to the people who were really, really good at making financial plans and strategy. They were the business people of the day. And they were the ones saying, we're going to go on The Apprentice and we're going to win. We're going to go to Dragon's Den and we're going to get the deal. Because these are the guys that had their financial plan, their business plan, their strategy in place. And what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with it as far as I can see. I think it's a good idea to have a plan. I mean, it must also be inbuilt in all of us somehow, because we all want something to make our lives better. Who doesn't want financial security? No, I can't see any hands. And who doesn't want to strategically plan so they can make some money and have a lovely life? Who personally doesn't do it? Whether you're a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, a pagan. Who doesn't want to make that plan? And this is what James was talking about. James was saying, you can't just think like everybody else. You can't just think on a worldly plane and go, I'm going to go there and I'm going to make lots of money and I'm going to live happily ever after and I'm going to store up treasures so that I'm okay. Because we have a great consultant. And we are meant to be set apart. We are meant to be saying, okay, God, where do you want me? Rather than saying, I'm going to go there. Is that okay, God? These people were using worldly strategy. They were using the scales of wealth in terms of how much money you could have. Again, worldly. And that's what James speaks against all the way through James. He's talking about not being worldly, but actually being godly. Proverbs 16 verse 3 says, "Commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will be established." How many degrees off are you in this? Are you the type of person that says, I'm going to go there and I'm going to buy that house? Or are you the type of person that says, God, do you want me to buy a house? And which one should I buy? And where should it be? Which location? And how many bedrooms should it have so that I can host people? How many degrees are you off tonight? If you wrote down on that golf ball your plans versus God's plans, where's it going? Is it going straight down the fairway, or is it going off somewhere else? Verse 14. Why? You do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. James basically rips into them, saying that you are like vapor, here 1 minute and gone the next. I don't know whether you can see that, but it's here 1 minute. It smells really nice, but it's gone the next. This is apparently how we do washing. It's really, really good. But it's here 1 minute and now it's gone. That is what our lives are like. James says, any one of you could be struck down dead overnight. Don't be so arrogant to plan your life a year in ahead, making rational plans for a comfortable retirement, lulling yourself into a false sense of security like everybody else. This little word that we're talking about, this vapor, this mist, is also looked at in Ecclesiastes. In the book of Ecclesiastes, it says, meaningless, meaningless, everything is meaningless. And at that point, you give up on the book because you think, well, it's meaningless. But actually, the word, the Hebrew word is a word called hevel. And it actually means vaporous. It means fleeting. It's like that here one day and gone the next. And if you can't quite work it out, it's this piece of paper is really, really quite good for it. So this piece of paper, imagine that's my life. This is my life. It's going well. And I've got my plans. They mean a lot. I'm trying my hardest. I'm trying to be a vicar. I'm doing my best. But it's here 1 minute. And it's gone the next. Pyrotechnics. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Your lives are like that. This is what James is saying to the people. Your lives are not that important that you can make your own plans. As Christians, we have a responsibility to say, God, what are your plans for me? He says that we need to think on a higher level. On a level that says, Jesus, you are Lord of our life. Because we're meant to submit to him. We are meant to submit every piece of our lives to him. Because he has the ultimate plan. We need to realize that he's in control of our lives. Whether we live or die or prosper, whether we have a job, whether we're in church tonight or online, he is in control. So submit yourselves, therefore, to God and his plans for you. If you could write that on a golf ball, your plans, have you submitted to him? Where would it land? How many degrees off are you? Verse 15 says, instead you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. Now, I've read this a few times and I was like, I can't quite tell the difference. But the difference is really, really subtle. I mean, I get it wrong quite a lot, but James's message is really, really clear. It says, make plans in the will of God. Not make plans and say, God, will you be in it? It's just a subtle difference. It's about who's in control. Is it you or is it God? And obviously, the answer is we want God to be in control. So making sure that we are humbling ourselves so that he can exalt us rather than doing really well in business and exalting ourselves that will just disappear like that. If your plans are made with careful prayer and aimed at God's goals, then those plans are the most secure plans you can ever have. Verse 16 and 17. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is a sin for them. So this bit's fairly straightforward. Don't boast and do the right thing in God's will. Make your plans in God's will and also choose to do the right thing. And don't not do the right thing. See, again, I got a little bit confused here because there's do the right thing and don't not do the right thing. Do the right thing and don't not do the right thing. Whew. Okay, if you need a little bit of help with this like I did, imagine you see someone who's really struggling to cross the street. Do you go and help them cross the street? Is it the right thing to do to help this person cross the street? Yeah, okay, well done. Yeah, you got the answer right. Okay, now, if you know that it's the right thing to do and you don't do it, that is what James is saying. That bit is a sin for you, obviously on a simple matter, rather than just a simple matter of helping someone across the street or not. But you knew the right thing to do and you failed to do it. It's coming up to tax return season. Any of you guys got a little bit of extra cash in hand this year that you're thinking, oh, I don't need to submit that? No one's going to know. Or you walk out of a shop and you've got a coat under your arm that you'd forgotten about, and the alarm doesn't go, thief, 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 as you walk out. You get back home and you realize you've got this coat that you didn't pay for. Do you go back and pay for it? Or do you think, no one's going to know? No one's going to know at all. How many degrees off are you from doing the right thing? And how many degrees off are you from not doing the right thing? It's really difficult to say that one. We're called to do the right thing, whether everyone can see it or no one can see it, because do you know who does see? God. He sees it all. Chapter 5 now, we're moving on. Now listen, you rich people. Weep and wail because of the misery that is coming on you. Your wealth has rotted and moths have eaten your clothes. Your gold and silver are corroded. Their corrosion will testify against you and eat your flesh like fire. You have hoarded wealth in the last days. Now this passage is addressing the wealthy and the wealthy non-Christians. Sorry, so it's addressing the wealthy Christians and the non-Christians. But he's basically saying, you guys, you're storing up all these treasures, but you need to do the right thing. Is that giving to charity? Where's the justice in how you live your life? We're called to be a community of justice. We're called to have people's backs and protect for each other and stick up for each other. But actually, you're just looking out for yourself. And in the end days, all those things are just going to rot and disappear. I did think about, wearing some different clothes tonight and ripping them off like they were going to disappear, and I just thought it'd be a little bit inappropriate. So I didn't do that. I was proud of myself for making that decision. But Revelation 3 says, you say, I am rich. I have acquired wealth and do not need a thing. But you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. I counsel you to buy from me gold refined in the fire so you can become rich, and white clothes to wear so you can cover your shameful nakedness, and salve to put on your eyes so you can see. Everything that you've got, you can't take with you. Naked you came into this world and, naked you go. You can't take anything with you. So what are we doing with what we've got? That's one of the biggest questions of tonight. Whether you've got a lot or a little, what are you doing with it? It's all referring to these end times of these earthly treasures being stripped away. Matthew says, do not store up for yourselves treasure on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there also will be your heart. How many degrees off are you tonight? What are you writing on the golf ball? Is it the treasures that you've got on earth? Your really lovely house, your really lovely car, your great family, your job, your bank account that keeps going up and up and up? Or treasures in heaven? Which one are you storing? Which one are you trying to work up and actually get greater treasures? Greater treasures on earth or greater treasures in heaven? Wonder where you are tonight. Verse 4. Look, the wages you failed to pay the workers who mowed your fields are crying out against you. The cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord Almighty. Or to put it another way, the shop whose coat you didn't pay for affects the food of the shop worker's child that you don't see. Or the tax you didn't pay, you didn't submit, all of those little bits of cash that came along affects the NHS some way, somehow. But the Lord sees it and he knows it. He knows your heart inside out. He knows what's going on. He knows what you're focused on. He knows where your heart is at. Verse 5 and 6. You have lived on earth in luxury and self-indulgence. You have fattened yourselves on the day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the innocent one who was not opposing you. There's some pretty brutal words in there, isn't there? You guys, all of you, oh yeah, and me, we've fattened ourselves. We're greedy. We really are. There's no way of shying away from that. We're just greedy. We've got too much. We've focused so much on giving ourselves a life that is comfortable rather than a life that is sacrificial. What is it that God wants of you tonight? What have you been storing in your pocket? Is it the stack of £10 notes? Is it your house? Is it your career? Whatever it is, what is it that God wants tonight? He's asking where our heart is. What are we focused on? Are we focused on building it all up here or all up there? In this economic turmoil, we've got challenges, and every one of us faces it. We need to save a bit of money there, save a bit of money there. Or do we flip it right on its head and we say, okay, God, it's all yours anyway. We're going to give it all to you and see what you do with it. We're not going to withhold it from doing the right thing. We're not going to oppress people by not doing the right thing. Because that's, again, what this passage is saying. That when we think, oh, maybe I should have given that to charity or not, if you don't give it, you could inadvertently be oppressing somebody else by not doing the right thing. Now, I'm not going to tell you all where to put your money in, what to do. There's a bunch of ideas on a sheet that I think is going to be handed out afterwards of how you can do and activate justice in your life. But is your heart for justice? Is your heart for yourself? Is your heart for the poor in spirit and in truth? Is your heart for justice for the captives, the marginalized, the lost, the lonely, the lowly? Is your heart for justice for the starving, the jobless, the addicts, the broken? Are you thinking about yourself, or are you thinking about others? If you don't do the right thing, it is a sin for you. Is it on earth or in heaven? Where do you want to invest? If you put all these things on a golf ball and you smacked it with a club, how many degrees off are you tonight? Submit yourself, therefore, to God. Are you submitted? Are you landing in the fairway, or are you somewhere else? Resist the devil and he will flee from you. Is the ball landing on the fairway or somewhere else? Draw near to God and he will draw near to you. Is the ball landing on the fairway or somewhere else? Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts. Is the ball landing in the fairway or somewhere else? Humble yourselves before the Lord and he will exalt you. Is the ball landing in the fairway or somewhere else? Give your plans to God. Is the ball landing in the fairway or somewhere else? Don't be arrogant about your plans. Is the ball landing in the fairway or somewhere else? Do you get where I'm going with this? Do the right thing. Is the ball landing in the fairway or somewhere else? Don't not do the right thing. Is the ball landing in the fairway or somewhere else? Store up treasures in heaven and not on earth. Where's the ball landing? I think sometimes we can listen to a message, especially a message in James, and think, wow, that was hard hitting, and not do anything about it. But I think God's challenging us tonight. I think he's basically going to say to us, okay, guys, action is required at the end of this. If at any of those moments tonight you thought, if I hit that ball, it'd be somewhere else, then there's action required. How many degrees off? If it's 3 degrees off, I challenge you by the end of this week to make it 2 degrees off instead of 3. If you know that you've done something, you've held on to something that you should have given away, sort it out this week. If you know that you've got something from a shop or somebody else that you've essentially stolen without really realizing, but you know you've got it, sort it out. Give it back. Give it away. Make it right. Because the longer you don't make it right, the longer you keep on sinning. So I think, as I'm kind of landing now, but I just really get the sense that we need to repent. To repent of all these things. It's not repenting for having a lot of money. You're allowed a lot of money. But I think it's repenting of the heart attitude that we've got. What do we do with it? Are we operating in justice and in mercy and in generosity? Or is it selfish ambition? I just invite you to close your eyes.